Hi, gang. How you doing out there? My name is Harmony Heart. Come on, everybody. Let's follow the bouncing heart and sing along with our theme song. Open up all of the doors, my friend. You've got all the keys. Open up all of the doors, my friend. Come fun learning with me. Come fun learning with me. Yes, welcome to Fun Learning! Today we're going to have a great time and see films like The Chocolate Princess, The Stolen Necklace, A Little Girl and a Gunny Wolf, How Beaver Stole Fire, The Smallest Elephant in the World, Giants Come in Different Sizes, and Gulliver's Travels. So, come fun learning with me.
Once upon a time in a place called Sugarland lived a tiny chocolate princess. Her father was the sugar king and her mother was the sugar queen. They lived in isolated splendor, not knowing anything except their own sweet land. The chocolate princess was lonesome. One day while playing in her sugar yard, Chocolate spied a very different-looking little boy. He was round, completely round. Who are you? Chocolate asked. My family name is Ball, the strange boy answered. What's your first name? Asked Chocolate. Sourball, he stated with pride. Oh, said Chocolate, we look different than us, but that doesn't mean we can't communicate with each other, does it? Where do you come from? Come from a place called Sourland, said Ball. How did you get here? Said Chocolate. I rolled all the way, answered Ball. Roll? Could you teach me how to roll? I think so, said Ball. And so Ball taught the Chocolate Princess how to roll and how to jump through baskets like a basketball. Help! And he even taught her how to do eyes. Learning new things made the princess very happy. Ball would make the roll every day to the other side of his land just to laugh and learn about how others live. One day, however, the Sugar King said to Chocolate, My dear, you must marry the Candy Cream Center. Yes, said the Queen. You're much too grown up to waste all your time just playing in the sugar yard. Chocolate was very sad. The poor Sour would make the long roll every day, but the little princess would not be in the sugar yard anymore. Soon the day of Chocolate's wedding came, and all the inhabitants of Sugarland were excited and waiting for the wedding. Poor little Sourball heard about the great wedding that was about to take place in Sugarland between his Chocolate Princess and the Cream Center. Sour was mighty upset, so he started to roll towards his sugar in Sugarland. He rolled with all his might, and he was afraid he would be late and lose his Chocolate Princess. Minutes before the wedding, a little ball came hurtling right through the window of the church and landed right in the middle of the Cream Center. Poor Cream Center. He was a mess. Stop the wedding! What is this? He doesn't look like us. He's different. But he's handsome and clever. What kind of candies would you have? Why would you want to be with someone who looks like that? Because it's what's inside that counts. I never thought of that.
You know, gang, Bill Cosby is absolutely right. No matter what color, race, or religion we are, we're all the same. Here's a great film called The Stolen Necklace.
There was once a jungle garden belonging to a princess. The treetops were filled with monkeys. One monkey was very vain. She spent all of her time trying to think of ways to make herself prettier than any of the others. Each afternoon, the princess came to swim in the lily pond in the middle of the jungle garden. But first, she always removed her necklace of perfect pearls and left them on the bank with her maid. How the vain little monkey wished the necklace were hers. Each day when she saw it, she wanted it more than the day before. One especially hot afternoon, the princess lingered too long over her swim, and the maid grew drowsy and soon closed her eyes and fell asleep. When the monkey saw the pearl necklace unguarded, she was overjoyed. She wasted no time in taking it and hiding it in a hole high up in her tree before anyone saw her. The necklace will look better on me than on the princess, she said to herself. When the maid awoke and saw that the necklace was gone, she began to search for it frantically, and the princess began to cry. Nearby, the gardener was working, but when he heard the princess crying, he came running to see what was the matter. He helped the maid to look for the necklace, and although they searched everywhere, it was nowhere to be found. At last, when the hot sun had dropped low in the sky, the gardener said to the princess and her maid, "Someone has stolen the necklace, yet we are the only ones who have entered the garden. But there are many monkeys in those trees. I do believe one of them must have stolen the necklace." At this, the princess cheered up a bit, as she thought how easy it would be to find the guilty one. But then she looked up into the branches and saw so very many monkeys, each one of whom might be the thief. She began to cry harder than ever, and the maid joined her. Back and forth the gardener paced, frowning in deep thought as he did so. Finally he stopped and said with a smile, "I have thought of a way to catch the thief." He persuaded the princess and the maid to return to the palace and sleep in peace, promising them that he would return the necklace by morning. Then he set off as fast as he could go for the bazaar. Here, from a peddler, he bought as many strings of cheap, bright glass beads as he could carry. Then he returned to the garden, and that night, when all the monkeys were asleep, he scattered the strings of glass beads all around. Then he hid beneath a bush and quietly waited for morning to come. As soon as the sun rose, the monkeys awoke. When they saw the bright beads everywhere, they scrambled to get them, and chattering gaily, they all dressed themselves up in the shining necklaces. All but one. High in her tree, just next to the secret place where the precious pearl necklace was hidden, the vain monkey sat, smiling a superior smile. She paid no attention to the bright glass beads. But from his hiding place beneath the bush, the gardener was paying special attention to her. Before long, the other monkeys began to compare their necklaces. Soon the discussion turned into an argument as to which one had the prettiest. The argument turned into a quarrel, and the quarrel grew more and more fierce. Louder and louder it grew, until suddenly the vain little monkey up in the tree called down to the others, "Silly things, why quarrel when not one of you has the prettiest necklace? How could you when I have it?" At this, the other monkeys stopped quarreling with each other and began to laugh at her instead. Scornfully they said, "You? But you have no necklace at all. Poor silly thing." And then they would giggle and snicker to one another. Soon the vain monkey could bear it no longer. She reached down into the dark hole in the tree where the pearls on the necklace glowed like many little moons. Proudly, she took the necklace out and draped it around her neck as elegantly as the princess had. Then she swung down from the tree and began to mince and preen her way proudly down the garden path, tail and head held high. The other monkeys watched, open-mouthed with awe and wonder at the beautiful pearl necklace. But if that vain monkey had not held her head so high in the air, and if she had watched where she was going, she might have seen the gardener hiding quietly beneath the bush. But she did not see him, and when she passed by the bush where he lay hidden, quick as a wink, out he jumped and caught her, just like that. Before the little monkey could escape, he slipped the pearl necklace over her head and raced off to return it to the princess. The princess was so happy to see her necklace that she rewarded the gardener well for his cleverness. She gave him a golden shovel and a boy to help him with his work. As for that monkey, it would be nice to say that she never did a thing like that again. But I wonder if that is so.
Well, gang, I hope you learned a lesson from that one. Here comes a nice film, and this is called A Little Girl and a Gunny Wolf.
This is the story of a little girl who goes pitter-patter through the forest, and a big black Gunny Wolf who goes honk-a-cha, honk-a-cha after the little girl. Once upon a time, there was a little girl that lived with her mother on the edge of the forest. Little girl, never go in that forest, her mother always told her, because in that forest is the big bad Gunny Wolf. One day, the little girl was left home all by herself. She didn't want to watch TV. She didn't want to play with her toys. She didn't want to read her book. She looked out the window. She had nothing to do. Way in the forest, there were some lovely white flowers. Mother would just love those white flowers. I think I'm going to pick some. Pitter-patter, pitter-patter, pitter-patter. Right over to the white flowers, and she picked some. She was almost about ready to leave, and she saw some yellow-white flowers. The yellow flowers, pitter-patter, pitter-patter, pitter-patter. Over to the yellow flowers, and she picked some. She looked deep into the forest, and she saw some lovely orange flowers growing. She thought, I'm going to pick some. Pitter-patter, pitter-patter, pitter-patter. Over to the orange flowers. She was almost about ready to go home when, boom! Out behind the tree. Jump the big bad Gunny Wolf! The little girl started to run. Pitter-patter, pitter-patter, pitter-patter. Big bad Gunny Wolf went after her. Honk-a-cha, 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 after the little girl. And the big bad Gunny Wolf said to the little girl, why, for you move. And the little girl said, I don't move. She was so frightened she didn't know what to do. So she began to sing a silly song. Walkie, 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 fast asleep with that big bad Gunny Wolf. When the little girl saw the Gunny Wolf fast asleep, she went pitter-patter, 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 away from the Gunny Wolf. But the rustle and the crunch of the leaves on the first floor woke up that big bad Gunny Wolf. And he went, honk-a-cha, 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 after the little girl. And he said, little girl, why for you And the little girl said, I don't move. And she began to sing that silly song again. Walkie, 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 walkie. Fast asleep went that big bad Gunny Wolf. Well, this time, the little girl ran fast as she can to the fire. But she ran so fast, she dropped her white flowers and her orange flowers and her yellow flowers. But she ran, and she ran, and she ran, as fast as she could. She ran all the way home. Who was at the door waiting for her? Her mother. And she said, little girl, where have you been? Right away, the little girl started to cry. I went to cry, and it was a big bad Gunny Wolf, and I was 80 years. I promise I'll never do that again. And you know what? She's never going to fart again.
Voices and artwork by the kindergarten children of California School. Animation, Steve Klein. Folktale adaptation, Marion Klein.
Congratulations, all you young filmmakers. That was terrific. Here comes another great film. This is called How Beaver Stole Fire.
A long time ago, according to the Indians of the Northwest, the only people on Earth were the animal people, and they had no fire. It was hard to keep warm in the winter, and they couldn't cook any food. But Eagle knew there was fire in the sky, and he called his friends together to help bring the fire to Earth. He called Beaver, and he called Coyote, and Wolf came, and Chickadee, and Magpie, and finally, Grizzly Bear came. They all decided that they should have a song so that they could dance to get into the mood for their great adventure, getting fire from the sky. Magpie sang. But his song wasn't good enough. Then Wolf. Then Coyote. I'll sing, said Bear. But they couldn't dance to Bear's song either. Chickadee was shy and didn't want to sing at first, but they coaxed and begged him, and finally he agreed. Soon they were all dancing to Chickadee's song. Then they were ready to search for fire in the sky. First, they thought they could reach the sky by standing on each other's back.
No, said Beaver. It's no use. I can't reach the sky. I sure can't think of any way to get up there. They didn't know what else to try. They thought and thought, but no one had any ideas. Suddenly, Chickadee said, I know. Listen to me. Excuse me, please. I can show you. I know how to reach the sky. Just give me a little room and watch. And he shot an arrow straight into the sky. Then he shot another into the tail of that one. And another. And another. And when he was through, they had an arrow ladder straight up into the sky. One by one, the animals climbed to the sky. Finally, they had all reached the sky, all except for Bear. He wasn't sure the arrows were strong enough to hold him. And they weren't. Well, said Eagle, we'll have to get along without Bear. Coyote, you and Chickadee look over there for fire. Wolf, you and Magpie look over in that direction. Beaver, follow me. So Eagle and Beaver searched for the fire. Beaver swimming, with Eagle flying overhead. Eagle saw it first. Look, Beaver, there's the fire. It's in the Sky People's camp. How will we get it? Beaver worked out a plan. I'll make a beaver trap and put myself in it. The Sky People will think I'm dead and take me to their camp where the fire is. He built a trap and stayed in it all night. Beaver was frightened when the Sky Man came, but he didn't move. The Sky Man took Beaver back to his camp and bragged about the fine fur coat he would make. But just as the Sky Man was about to skin Beaver, Eagle moved in a nearby tree. When the Sky People saw him, they forgot all about Beaver. Beaver slipped away, found the fire, and hid it under his fingernails. They all met back at the Arrow Ladder, with the angry Sky People right behind them. "How can we escape?" they said. "Bear broke the arrows." Magpie and Chickadee flew back to Earth, and Eagle carried Beaver on his back. "I don't know about you," said Wolf, "but I'm going to jump." Then Coyote jumped, and just before he reached the ground, he used his magic to turn into a leaf and floated gently down. "What happened?" said Bear. "Did you get the fire?" The animals all looked at each other. "Who's got the fire? Did anyone get the fire?" "I have it," said Beaver. "Look." Now we need a place to keep it, so we will always have it. I know. I'll put it in the trees. And that's how Beaver stole the fire and saved it. So that whenever we need fire, we can get it from wood.
Boy, that was terrific animation. Our next film is called The Smallest Elephant in the World. I think he was about that big.
Deep in the jungles of India lived the smallest elephant in the world. He could flap his ears just like any other elephant. He could swing his trunk just like any other elephant. And he could trumpet through his trunk just like any other elephant. But the other elephants wouldn't have anything to do with him. Tigers laughed rudely when they saw him lose his way in the tall jungle grass. The gaily colored birds hooted when they saw him trip over a twig. Nobody would make room for him when he came to the waterhole to drink. You see, the smallest elephant in the world was no bigger than a house cat. And for an elephant, that's very sad. The smallest elephant finally said, "Very well, if I'm no bigger than a house cat, then a house is where I belong, not in this fierce, wild jungle." So he tripped and stumbled through the tall grass until he came to a city with big ships at the docks, and he slipped aboard one of the ships. One day, while the elephant was sleeping on a crate of Indian curry powder, the great ship stopped. Next thing he knew, he was sailing through the air as the crate was hoisted out of the hold and onto the dock. "Now," said the smallest elephant in the world as he scampered between the legs of the stevedores, "I must find a house." Out on the street, everybody was so busy rushing from here to there that no one noticed an elephant the size of a house cat. But presently, a little boy came down the street. He was busy, too. He was trying not to step on any cracks in the sidewalk, so naturally he had no trouble spying the smallest elephant at once. "Just what I've always wanted," cried the little boy, whose name was Arnold. "An elephant the size of a house cat." "Wonderful," exclaimed the elephant, "because what I need is a house." In no time at all, Arnold was home with his elephant. But Arnold's mother was not happy about it. What would people think? An elephant for a pet? Out of the question. "Don't worry, elephant," said Arnold as he led his pet outside and down into the cellar. "You just do what I tell you, and everything will be all right." Arnold trained the smallest elephant in the world to walk backwards, showed him how to keep his ears tucked in, taught him to wag his trunk like a tail. Then Arnold painted the most beautiful cat's face on the elephant's back. Arnold's mother did not really think they needed a pet, but a cat was better than an elephant. But that night, when everyone was asleep, a mouse came out of the woodwork to find a meal for himself. The smallest elephant was sleeping backwards in the potato bin so that he would look like a cat. The mouse, who knew a cat when he saw one, wasn't fooled for a minute. "What's this strange creature sleeping in the potato bin?" said the mouse to himself. And he went up to the elephant to investigate. And just then the elephant woke up. Even though he was the smallest elephant in the world, he knew a mouse when he saw one. And he was just as afraid of a mouse as the biggest elephant in the world. Of course, he woke up the whole house with his noisy trumpeting, and then Arnold's mother knew she'd been tricked. "An elephant belongs in a circus," she told Arnold, and that's where she took him. "Wonderful, wonderful," exclaimed the ringmaster. "I have just the spot for him." And he introduced the elephant to Hilo, the smallest midget in the world. Now, whenever Arnold wants to see his little elephant, he goes to the circus, because the ringmaster gave him enough free passes to last a long, long time. There in the sideshow is Hilo, holding the smallest elephant in the world over his head. The sign says, "The smallest man in the world, and he can pick up an elephant." The elephant's very happy about it. The circus animals never laugh at him the way the jungle animals did. In fact, the other elephants are quite proud of him. And best of all, he lives with Hilo in a little house on wheels. "It's a good thing I'm no bigger than a house cat," said the elephant. "Otherwise, I'd never fit inside." So you see, there is room in the world for all sizes. And whether you're big, small, or in between, there is no measuring stick for a happy heart and a broad smile.
So no matter what size you are, you keep right on smiling, okay? Our next film is about a big giant, and it's called Giants Come in Different Sizes.
This is a great place to read our story.
What's the name of it?
Giants Come in Different Sizes. It's one I wrote several years ago.
It's about this king and about hamburgers that grow on hamburger bushes. But let's start at the beginning. The story starts on a tiny island way, way out in the ocean. The island was so small, it looked like somebody's shoe floating around out there. In every direction there was water, acres and acres of it, as far as you could see. On the island was the kingdom of Dingleberg.
Dingleberg, what a silly name.
Well, it was kind of a silly little kingdom. But if you ever visited the island, the first thing you'd notice was what a sunny place it was. The sun shone every single day. It shone down on the people and made them happy. It shone down on their hamburger gardens and made the hamburgers grow. And it shone down on the castle on top of the hill where King Burger lived with his daughter, the princess. For as long as anyone could remember, he had ruled Dingleberg, and it had been a bright, happy place. But one day, a dark, gloomy ship sailed over the horizon toward Dingleberg. Over the ship hung dark, gloomy clouds, and they seemed to move right along with it. On the deck of the ship was a dark, gloomy-looking wizard named Warts.
Ooh, he looks mean.
He was, and as the ship came nearer, the clouds that were sailing along over it gradually covered the sun, and the light grew dim. A chill wind blew over the tiny kingdom of Dingleberg. The ship landed, and Wizard Warts got off. He started climbing up the hill toward the castle. He trampled through the hamburger gardens. He bumped into people without saying, "Excuse me." You can see what kind of a wizard he was. When he got to the castle, he was stopped by a huge guard. Wizard Warts asked him to bend over so that he could whisper something to him. Warts jammed the guard's bushy hat down over his eyes and rushed into the castle. King Burger was sitting on his throne, trying to eat a hamburger while getting a shave and a haircut from Seville, the traveling barber. Seville came to Dingleberg each month to cut the king's hair. Wizard Warts burst into the throne room. He didn't even bow to the king before he spoke.
King Burger, today is your daughter's birthday. She is now old enough to be married, and I want her to be my wife.
King Burger was so astonished that he choked on his hamburger. He coughed and he sputtered, and behind the shaving lather, his face grew as red as a beet. The wizard went right on talking, offering the king expensive gifts if he would agree to the marriage, and threatening to put a dark curse on the whole island if he did not. He said he was in a hurry for a wife, as the ironing and the dishes where he lived had not been done for years, and were piling up so that he could no longer get in the door. King Burger jumped to his feet and roared,
Enough! Get out of my castle and off my island at once!
He grabbed the barber's shaving brush and threw it at the wizard. He would have thrown the hamburger, too, but he remembered his manners just in time. Kings do not throw food, even at rude wizards. He shouted to the barber,
Seville, if this wizard isn't out of here in a wink, use your sword on him.
The young traveling barber was glad of a chance to serve the king, and besides, he wanted to marry the princess himself. He didn't have a sword, so he started after Wizard Warts with his barber's scissors. Wizard Warts was out of the castle in a wink, pausing just long enough to stomp on the toe of the guard. Keeping well ahead of Seville's sharp scissors, he ran down the hill and was soon on his ship and out to sea.
You'll be sorry. All of Dingleberg will be sorry.
He pointed at one of the dark clouds hovering over his ship.
Dark and dreary, sad and eerie, stay and make this island dreary.
The gloomy ship turned slowly around and sailed back in the direction from which it had come. Although the wizard finally disappeared over the horizon, the darkness did not. The cloud stayed, blocking out the sun. It stayed there all that day and the next, and the next, and the next. A month passed, and as usual, Seville, the traveling barber, stopped at the island to cut the king's hair. He found Dingleberg a completely different place. It was no longer full of sunshine and gaiety. The cloud was still hanging over the island, keeping it dark. He found the people worried. The hamburger crop, without sunshine, had begun to wither and die. A dying hamburger plant is a sad thing to see. Worst of all, The children were unable to play in the bright sunshine and grew unhappier with each passing day. Seville learned that many ways had been tried to move the cloud. The cannon standing by the gate of Dingleberg Castle had been pointed skyward and fired. But the cannonballs had simply disappeared into the murk. Huge fires had been built, but the cloud was too high for the heat of the flames to reach it. Seville even saw people on their roofs throwing things at the cloud. Things like shoes and bricks and hamburgers.
Did it do any good?
Not a bit. When the barber reached the castle, he found the king slumped down on his throne, gazing sadly at a plate of withered hamburgers. Seville cut the king's hair in silence, trying to think of some way to help. About halfway through, he got an idea.
King Burger, as long as the cloud can't be moved, perhaps the island can be. One of my customers on another island, a giant named Much, just might be able to do it. It's worth a try. How big is this giant? He's so big, I have to trim his beard with the head shears. And he's got muscles like iron. Seville, I know that you have always loved the princess and hope to marry her someday. If you can move the island, I'll not only agree to the wedding, I'll make you Royal Barber of Dingleberg.
That very afternoon, Seville climbed into his tiny boat and sailed off across the sea. When the people of Dingleberg saw his ship again a few days later, it was being pushed through the water by a giant so huge that the sea came up only to his waist.
Weren't the people scared?
You bet. But the giant called out in a loud voice that he was Seville's friend and that he was there to help. He took a huge rope from over his shoulder and circled the island with it. He tied the ends of the rope around his waist and tried to pull the island out from under the cloud. He pulled and he strained. His muscles bulged and his face turned pink. But the island didn't budge, not an inch. The princess tried to comfort Seville.
You tried your best. I'm proud of you, even if your plan did fail.
Fail? I haven't failed yet. Much's brother Moore is twice as big. So big, I have to use a scythe to cut his hair. We'll get him to come and move the island.
After resting a bit, the giant ate a snack of 482 hamburgers. Then, with Seville perched on his shoulder, he waded off in the direction from which they had come. They returned the next day with another giant who was indeed twice as big as Much. The barber told Much and Moore to get on opposite sides of the island. He told Much to push on the island while his brother Moore pulled on the rope. They pushed and they pulled. They grunted and groaned. But the island didn't budge, not an inch. This time, the disappointment was too much for the princess. She broke into tears.
Oh, what will become of Dingleberg under this horrid dark cloud? Even Much and Moore have failed.
Failed? They haven't failed yet. Their cousin Most is many times larger than they. So big, I have to cut his hair with a horse-drawn mower.
Yeah, Cousin Most is a lot bigger and stronger than we are. We didn't ask him before because he has the sniffles and shouldn't get his feet wet. But he'll come if we really need him.
The giants ate a snack of 2,044 hamburgers. Then they waded back the way they had come. The next day they were back, followed by the largest giant ever. The ocean barely covered his feet, and his head towered so high in the sky that only the people living near the top of Dingleberg's hill could see it. They could hear him sniffling and snuffling, though, and it really scared them. A giant with the sniffles is a terrifying thing to hear, especially one who has just had a long walk in a wet ocean. Seville shouted up to Much.
Ask him to move the island.
Much nodded and shouted up to Moore.
Ask him to move the island.
Moore tilted his head way back to shout up to Most. When it happened, Most started to sneeze.
A
wind like 100 hurricanes swept over the island. It broke windows, and it blew leaves off the trees. It blew hamburgers off the hamburger bushes, and the king's crown right off his head. But something else happened at the same time. Something wonderful. For the first time since the visit of the wizard, the sun shone down on Dingleberg. The people stuck their heads out of their broken windows in amazement. The king looked out the castle door and cheered. The princess saw the world suddenly brighten around her and cried out in delight. Dingleberg was saved. That night a celebration was held. After a huge hamburger banquet, the king gave the largest medals he could find to Much, More, and Most. He gave Seville the title of Royal Barber of Dingleberg and announced that Seville and the princess would soon be wed. On the day the barber married the princess, the sun shone down on Dingleberg brighter and happier than ever before. After the wedding, Moore supplied a good wind for Seville's small boat as the bride and groom started off on their honeymoon. And as they sailed out of sight, the princess whispered softly to Seville,
"Aren't you glad that giants come in different sizes?"
See, I told you it doesn't matter how big or how small you are. Hey, speaking of giants, here's another one about a giant called Gulliver.
His ship wrecked in a storm. A sailor by the name of Gulliver crawled ashore and promptly fell asleep on the beach of a strange island. As he slept, the people of the island came to stare at him. People no different from you and me, except for the fact that the tallest of them was only 2 inches high. Gulliver was tied down by rope the thickness of strong thread. Before long, Gulliver awoke and jerked his left arm up sharply. He was about to do the same with his right arm when a shower of arrows, like so many pins, hit him in the side of the face. He watched as one of the soldiers, who clearly wanted a medal for bravery, steadily marched across his chest, climbing over the wrinkles of Gulliver's coat. When he was close enough, the soldier fitted an arrow into his bow and took aim at Gulliver's left eye. Not wanting to hurt the little man, Gulliver gently blew on him, which to the soldier felt like a hurricane. Now Gulliver lay still, looking in amusement at his tiny captors. Although he could easily have broken the threads holding him, Gulliver remained without moving, for he was interested in the little people and wanted to learn more about them. Meanwhile, a large platform was wheeled alongside of him, and through the use of cranes and pulleys, he found himself lifted onto the platform and carted away. At the palace, Gulliver met the king and learned that he was in the land of Lilliput. The king marched to within an inch of Gulliver's nose and spoke in a royal voice, which to Gulliver sounded more like a royal whisper.
"You are now one of my subjects and must obey my every command."
After giving his solemn promise that he would do no harm, Gulliver was untied. A great shout of excitement came from the people as they gazed up at the visitor, who stood taller than their tallest buildings. At a motion from the king, Gulliver picked him up and held him close to his ear. The king said to Gulliver,
"I give you permission to move freely about the countryside, so long as you are careful where you put your feet."
So Gulliver remained in the country of Lilliput for many months, and gradually the Lilliputians grew accustomed to looking up and seeing him suddenly towering over them. He was of great help to the little people, lifting huge stones for building walls and other constructions. and reporting to the king on the exact size of his kingdom, which he measured by pacing off steps around the island. In return, the king ordered new clothes to be made for Gulliver, and 200 tailors went to work on the job. The king also put 300 cooks to the task of keeping Gulliver supplied with food, while 30 servants kept him supplied with wine for his meals. The time passed pleasantly, and Gulliver was much interested in the customs of the tiny people and had many adventures with them. Then one day, the king told Gulliver that he should assist the Lilliputians in their annual war against the people of the neighboring island, the country of Blefuscu.
A very rebellious people,
The king went on.
who have refused to obey the law that states that when breaking an egg, the small end must be cracked first. Obviously, there is no choice but to declare war.
The opposing armies and navies were drawn up for battle. The men, horses, cannons, and ships readied. Learning that the Blefuscans were planning an invasion, Gulliver hit upon a plan for stopping them, for he did not want his new friends hurt. Wading across the channel of water that separated the two islands, Gulliver gathered up the anchor chains of the Blefuscan ships, towed the entire fleet back across the channel, and so frightened both armies that the war was ended before it started. Soon after, when a full-sized rowboat was washed up upon the shore, Gulliver decided it was time for him to return to his own country. With great skill, the Lilliputians sewed 100 bed sheets together to make Gulliver a sail for the boat, and gave him food and drink to last a month. When the time came for Gulliver's departure, the king and the entire population of Lilliput came down to the beach to see him off. The king presented Gulliver with his own sword as a souvenir, and Gulliver in turn gave the king his pocket watch to put in the tower of the town hall. And then, with a final wave, Gulliver set sail and took his leave of the little people of Lilliput.
Well, gang, I hope you had a good time, and I hope you learned something too. Come on back and see me again for some more fun learning. And remember, treat other people the way you want to be treated. Okay? Time for some astral projection. So long for now!